Welcome to the Empowered Podcast with Deanna Merlino, an all-encompassing personal development show where I will be sharing with you just how to transform yourself into the best version of you, both inside and out. From wellness, entrepreneurship, spirituality, and manifestation, I'll be showing you exactly how to live your best life. I will be keeping it as real and raw as it gets. So get ready to peel back the layers and really transform yourself under the surface. Because nothing is better than finding your purpose and living this life as your true, authentic self. Welcome back, Empowered fam. I hope you have had a beautiful day and a beautiful week and caught last week's episode and are ready for this new one. So last night, this is going to be a short, quick, like a motivational episode. Last night, I went to a concert and we had a blast. That was my first time not sitting like in lawn seats. We sat super close to the stage, had an absolute blast. It was such an experience. And it was great because it was pouring rain, but we were covered. So it's definitely the way to go for concerts moving forward. And really why I wanted to talk about this was if you've been around for a while, if you've known me for a long time, then you know this firsthand. But if you've been around the podcast for a while, I've talked about this before. I have a past of singing, and I've always had my hand in instruments through band, and I love all things music and musical. And I was thinking about this today because of my experience at the concert, which we'll get to. But I realized I've always had such a passion for creation, a passion for music. And there was a point in time when it was like my goal to become famous for singing. And I used to be in dance competitions. And I used to draw when I was little. When I was like super young, I was still in elementary. One of my paintings made it to the high school art show. Like I've always had a love for creating an expression. And I realize now that as an adult, I don't do it as much. And I've made peace with that not being the path that I continued to chase. I fully believe that in another life, in a past life, I definitely was a singer or something along those lines. From the time I was little, I've always had a passion for performing and putting on a show. And I was always in every show you could humanly get yourself into. But now it's different for me. Now I make sure to mindfully move my body, especially starting the day. I take time as much as I can to create, and I express myself in different ways now. I create courses and the podcast and coaching containers and facilitating retreats, right? I'm creating in different ways. But I wanted to take a mindful moment to remind you here, what were the things that you loved doing as a child that you maybe no longer do? Or maybe you do them. They're just a little different. Make sure you're making time for play and creativity, right? That's actually the juice of life. Like that is the stuff that gives us the energy to keep going, the joy, the zest, the play. That is all so important. And it's so easy for us to get lost in the rat race and the wheel of I've got to go to work. I've got to clock in. I have a boss. I have bills. I have responsibilities. I have to take care of my family. I have to do this. I have to do that. I have to do that. On that note, like remind yourself, no, think of it from a perspective shift of I get to do that. It changes the energy. And if there's something that you're doing where you're like, nope, it's definitely I have to do that. Well, how can you shift it to be a more enjoyable way of doing the thing, paying the bills, taking care of your family, taking care of yourself, being a good friend? Like how can you do it in a way that feels better? But really going off on a tangent here, the reason that I, wanted to talk about all of this is getting to see the artist play on stage lights me up in a whole different way. Like getting to see, it makes me emotional. There were so many times that I teared up at the concert last night, just seeing the artists and the people playing the guitars and the drums and the piano, just pouring themselves into the moment, pouring themselves into the creation, pouring their heart and soul into everything that they're doing. And how amazing is it to watch these people who have such a passion and a drive and wanted to make a life out of doing that. And they did the damn thing. I think so many of us get caught up in the, well, that's not realistic, or, I need more money than that, or whatnot. Like they could have had all those excuses too. And maybe they did have those excuses at some point, but they chose that, no, it's going to be different. I'm going to get to make a living, make a life out of doing this. And they get to do the thing that fills them up. Like even just like the videographers on stage getting to catch all of that content and be up there interacting with the artist and the crowd. And it lit me up seeing that. And it just reminded me, I'm getting emotional. It just reminded me, like, what is the point of living life if you're not going to do something that lights you up and brings you joy? It is such a waste when you just clock in and out of your life, clock in and out of your day, day by day. Oh man, I don't know if I'm going to make it through this episode without crying. So one of my mentors sent out an email today about how her father was like such a worker, super successful, was at the top of, like a CEO in some sort of company. I think he was the CFO, something like that. But at the top of a company, and was really good at his job, and was like, when I hit 65, I'm going to do the damn thing. I'm going to live my life, right? I spent my life clocking in and out, and I'm going to go and enjoy the rest of my life. And guess what? At 64, he passed away. Spent his whole life. So many people spend their whole lives planning, and we have to, and I'm not saying it's irresponsible to plan for your future, but the future is not promised. It's so sad. And I see it happen so much where these people spend their whole life waiting to live, and then they don't even make it there. Like, what was the point? I hear this story all the time. This happened to someone that my husband works with, got cancer, passed away at retirement age. And I was up at the lodge today. This is something I'll create a whole episode around. Tomorrow begins a new journey for me, and it's related to shamanism. And there's a really cool experience that I'm going to partake in tomorrow at the lodge. And I still need to share about my experience with my shamanic healers. But one of really why I wasn't going to talk about this, but I guess we'll talk about it real briefly. One of the things that came up in my last shamanic healing was that if you do not truly slow down, I would be forced to slow down. And so there is a group of beings, spirit beings in the spirit realm called the Council of Light. And the best way that I can explain that to anyone who hasn't heard of the Council of Light before, it's all sorts of ascended masters and just really high frequency spirit beings who assist humanity. And they literally stopped my shaman and had her share. They said, we've been trying to tell you over and over and over again, and you're not listening. And at this point, it is so much bigger than me, that my purpose, my message, what needs to be shared is so much bigger than me. And it is my agreement and what my soul chose to do in this lifetime, to share something more than I already am. And you can only connect when you're slowed down, when you're listening, when there's enough spaciousness in your life to receive the contact, to be at a frequency for them to share their messages. And I receive messages a lot. So I'm like, oh my goodness, how much more do I need to slow down? I feel, and right, if you've been listening to my last couple episodes, you may have heard me talking about slowing down. And I hear it, I get the message, I'm listening, but it was very clear, like, you're not listening enough. And because this is no longer just about you, and it is so much bigger than this, and the collective you need to receive this, you will either receive it because you slow down and you listen, you choose to, or we will force you. And I don't know what that would look like, right? Whether it be I break a leg, or remember I broke my toe because I wasn't slowing down and listening. So if breaking a toe wasn't loud enough, I don't want to know what the next thing is, right? Because when we the universe will get louder and louder and louder. It will go from a pebble to a stone to a boulder. I don't want the boulder. And so I knew I needed to slow down. I also know that like it's my responsibility to learn that lesson because of the ancestral trauma. Like that's what my dad did. He didn't listen. He worked all the time, right? This is something that I needed to learn. This is something that I needed to heal within myself. And for my familial line, this is a big lesson for me, right? And so I knew that. But anyhow, they were like, now that we have come to you and literally handed this on a golden platter, there's no denying it takes a lot to get that message through, and you're going to listen, or we will slow you down to listen. And it was very specific. You have 8 days. And normally, like, you don't give messages like that, right? Like it's not meant to be scary. But for me, it's like, okay, this is a massive message. So 8 days would have been the concert. So I was like, okay, I survived. All is well. I made it home. And when continue to make my life slower, right? Because what's the point if I just slow down for a week and then I'm back to chaos? That does nothing. So I'm really glad that I listened and got that message. But anyhow, something starts tomorrow, which I'll share about more. And anyhow, I was at the lodge getting the place presented and ready for tomorrow's big day for this big thing. And I was just sitting there thinking about this whole message that I'm sharing. And my dad died literally 2, 3 weeks after his 65th birthday. There was a heart surgery that he needed, and the insurance wasn't going to kick in for it until he was 65. So everything was when I get to 65, then I'm going to get the surgery, and then everything's going to be fine. And then I will like fully retire, and then I will get, all of the finances in order, and then I will get life insurance, and then. He didn't make it. He spent his whole life working, his whole life pouring himself into creating this empire. For what? For what? I didn't ask for any of this. All my life, my dad was so excited wanting a son, a grandson in the picture to teach him how to build and all of that. That'll never happen. My son will never know my grandpa in that way, or his grandpa in that way. I'm sorry, my dad in that way. Like, what is it for? We just put off and put off and put off and put off because we think that we have the time. Tomorrow is not promised. What can you do to enjoy your life now? What can you do to make a life out of your passion now? What can you do to create a life that feels good and fulfilling now? Some people don't even make it to 64, 65. Truly, like every day is a blessing, every day is a gift. Stop wasting your time. Live your life. It's so short. It's so short. And I promise you, there's no purpose other than living and enjoying. There really isn't. We all get caught up in life thinking, you know what, oh man, I'm busy. I'll call that person later. Or you know what, next year when my child gets this much older, then I'll start the business. You know what, when I cool down a little bit, then I'll forgive so and so. Who do you need to call? Call them today. Like if you can't call them right now, who do you need to forgive for yourself? Even if it's not a forgiveness that can be done through, a communication. Take some private time with yourself and set the intention to forgive whomever you need to so that you can stop carrying that burden. What do you need to do to take one step towards living your dream life? What is one step you can take towards starting the business? What is one step that you can take towards living bare minimum, living a life full of the things that light you up, like painting or dancing or playing music or playing an instrument or whatever it is, just playing a little more, enjoying a little more, living a little more. There's one thing you can do. because time is precious and it is the one thing you cannot get back. And this life is short and it is here for you to live. I know this episode was all over the place, but I hope you get what I intended out of this episode, for you to live a little bigger and brighter and bolder and happier and more full of passion and joy. You deserve that, truly. So sit with this episode, maybe come back to it again, and keep reminding yourself to just take one step. Okay, y'all. I love you. I hope you have the best day, the best week, and I'll see you next time on the Empowered with Deanna Merlino podcast. As always, thank you for being here. Thank you all so much for listening to today's episode. If you want to dive deeper in with me, you can follow me on Instagram at theempoweredcoach333. You can also check out everything I have to offer on my website, which is deannamerlino.com. Whatever platform you are listening on, do your girl a favor and please rate and subscribe. This means so much to me and is going to help the show grow and reach so many other people. I am so grateful that you are here with me on this journey of growth and self-empowerment. I cannot say that it will always be easy, but I do promise that it will always be worth it. Stick with me and let's start living as the version of ourselves that we were truly meant to be, because the world is waiting on your gifts and you deserve to live the life of your wildest dreams and beyond. So friends, let's get empowered.